Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome along then to this second round of the season for PC Division 1. We have, I'm hoping, a very action-packed race on for us all this evening. We've got, of course, Spa-Francorchamps, one of the great circuits that we go to here in the FRS. My name is Daniel Gilligan, and alongside me in the virtual commentary box and virtual control room for this evening's Grand Prix, I am absolutely delighted to introduce a man who I have a huge deal of respect for, but very often do not get to commentate with, and that is, of course, Harry Zord. Zord, how are we doing today?
I am very well. I'm very well, thank you, Dan. Rumours of a wet race in Spa today, as we often see, but might not be as damp as the virtual commentary box. It is a sweaty affair this evening, is it not?
It certainly is, unfortunately. Yep, it is very much the hot box for our virtual commentary box this evening. Myself, I've got a fan running next to me here to try and beat some of the abnormal British heat, as it turns out. Today is what we've got, and I understand you've got a similar thing going on.
I have a fan pointed directly into my face, and I'm hoping for the best. So to be honest, if it's bad enough for us commentating, I'm not sure what the weather's like around Europe and over in the States and wherever else our drivers might be participating from this evening, but I don't envy those who have to drive in these sorts of conditions.
No, absolutely not. And I think that in terms of what the drivers are going to be going through today, of course, it's not going to be quite as extreme as what we see, say, in real life Formula One, where lack of ventilation inside the cockpit means you're getting up to about 50 degrees worth of temperature at certain racetracks. So I would certainly hope it's not getting quite as high as that for any of the drivers either today or tomorrow. But we will see whether that turns out to be the case or not, really. We've got to have, in terms of the last race, of course, it was action-packed, it was interesting, it was fun, with the occasional glitch or two. But overall, I think for PC Division 1 at least, it was a pretty good opening round of the season. Yeah,
I didn't catch the Division 1 race in its entirety. I did catch a lot of the Division 2 race, obviously, because I was commentating on that one. And it was a little messy. There was a few red flag issues, and another Division 1 race suffered from that as well. So hopefully we don't see anything similar this evening, and we can have a nice, clean run. But, it's FRS at Spa. It's never been messy in the past, has it?
No, never at all. No, I can't think of any occasion where Spa at the FRS has ever caused something of a I don't know, a controversy or incidents or anything like that. Especially not when there's inclement weather involved. Goodness no.
We'll see how it goes this evening. It looks like we've got a packed grid. I think we're expecting the full complement of 20 drivers in Division 1.
That's what we like to see. What we like to see, ladies and gentlemen. So, as just casting my eyes over the chat, we've got Raymond saying, let's see who is aware that the formation lap is turned off then, shall we? I think that's going to be an interesting moment. I think certainly it caught some drivers out in PC Division 2 last week. Some people will say, oh, crikey, we're going, are we? And then, of course, also in chat, we've got Milo saying, if Booth and Silver have a million number of fans, I am one of them. Sorry, I needed to unwrap that for a second because that's... Milo, you've not done well there. Unless, of course, Milo has suddenly decided that English is not their first language, in which case that's not too bad. If they have tens of fans, they're one of them. If they have only one fan, then it is them. So I think essentially the main thrust of that message from Milo there is that he's supporting Booth and as he says, okay, in the chat. But yes, I think the main thrust there is that Silver Arrow and Booth have a fan in Milo there. That's the main thing.
The immediate concern that I have is that all of the drivers have left the lobby in which I sat. So I would like to know where they've gone.
That's a very good question.
We'd like to be able to see them, but we will eagerly anticipate. I'm not sure if they might just be changing over the host. So yeah, we'll have a slight delay to proceedings here, but fingers crossed, we can have a nice clean run this evening. If only because I imagine not too many people will want to be putting themselves through this sort of heat sink for any longer than they would actually like to.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, I think a very good point. And the other thing I was going to mention, of course, is that of all of the times when this could have happened, having to sort out lobby issues and so on and so forth, I would much prefer it's around this time now when they haven't then got to go through and manually sort the grid out, before the qualifying session. Because then it means that we should, in theory, get going much quicker. At least that is the theory. Whether or not that is what it turns out to be in practice, we'll have to wait and see, of course. In terms of what we are, in terms of what else we can talk about, well, of course, keep your eyes on the FRS channels, both here and then FRS community as well. Over on community at the moment, they are, of course, doing, I believe it's the Xbox stream right now, takes part the same time as PC Division 1. And then, of course, later on this evening, there's going to be PC Division 4 on this channel here. And then on Sunday, we're going to have PC Division 3, we're going to have PlayStation Division 1, and then we're going to have PC Division 2, which, are you going to be Master and Commander of that stream once again?
I will not. Another reason I'm here tonight is I've done a little switcheroo, for I am flying away on my holidays tomorrow.
Ooh, very nice.
So, yeah, we will, I'll hopefully, by this point, have landed in the sunny Algarve.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. A favourite destination? Or first time? Or
well, I went when I was like 8. So, does that count? That was the best part of 24 years ago now. So, yeah. Hopefully, I think, as I understand, the weather's a little bit cooler by a couple of degrees over there than it is here. And also, they have air conditioning. So I'm mainly looking forward to that.
They do. They have air conditioning, and I would imagine that you're going to be somewhere at least relatively close to the sea, maybe?
Well, very close to the sea, not too far from Portimao.
Okay. Well, there you go. And even in chat there, Milo pointing out that you're visiting Portimao to prep for the subbing of it in the league instead of Cota. Can you confirm or deny that accusation?
As the team principal of Mercedes, I'm sure Mario Andretti would think I have far too much power already.
Very topical. Very topical. We're even getting in the contemporary news, even though it's summer break and there's nothing happening. Well, I say there's nothing happening. There was something happening, of course, in the world of F1 in the first part of this break. But now as we reach the end of week 1, it's all sort of quietened down, calmed down, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Silly season was very silly. And then we all got very into that, and now I'm wondering where my silly season's gone.
I know. It's very upsetting. I mean, I want to know more about Fernando Alonso and his perilous career decisions. I want to know more about Oscar Piastri and his potentially perilous career decisions by turning down a race seat when he's not currently a Formula 1 driver. It's an interesting scenario that we happen to have in front of us at the moment. So, in terms of what we're seeing on the circuit at the moment, do we have a lobby all sorted?
I'm shy of a lobby. Yeah, we are. Well, I think we're waiting for Hugh Sam, who's going to be a couple of minutes away from now. But we're still, I think, getting the lobby set up. I think at the moment we need a very specific set of lobby settings to even have a hope that we might get through this evening unscathed. And in fact, I think Fraser's just joined us in the voice channel.
Yes, you are in the wrong lobby. We are already fully ready in another lobby.
Interesting, because I can see everyone else showing in the main menu. So I will...
I guess... yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I am in my Steam overlay, and it also shows me as in the main menu.
Okay,
Very interesting. Do you have Charlie by any chance on your friends list?
I don't, but I've just joined on you, so I seem to be in the lobby now.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much then, Fraser. Is any insight from the championship leader before we get started today?
What do you want to know? Like approximate pole time if everything's dry? I can probably do mid 42s.
Well, I mean, I could ask you a question such as that, but you seem to have already asked it to yourself. So I think that the question I will ask you instead is, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to say, who's going to be first one to crash?
Let me think.
Diplomatic answer inbound.
Well, I would say any of the guys that are either like didn't practice at all, or I didn't see in any of the practice races, or those that are doing a 24-hour race like me, Force Tax, but Nordi maybe. Like you could theoretically say everyone, because I think everyone is running low wings, and judging from the practice race, everybody will have a moment somewhere. Just depends on if you can catch it or not.
Excellent, very good. That was a very diplomatic answer. We'll let you go then, Fraser.
Yep.
And we will hopefully be seeing you and everybody else on circuit very, very soon.
Yep.
So, there we are then. That was us being joined by the wonderful Fraser, taking his time to make sure that everything is okay, I suppose. So, with that, I suppose we will just now count down the moments until we are into the lobby, I suppose.
Well, we are about ready to go. So if you give me a few seconds, I'm going to launch the intro sequence, and then we can get this show on the road.
Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome along then to round number 2 of Season 6 of the FRS with PC Division 1 here at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. Here in the Ardennes Forest, it's the most challenging of circuits. It's also one of the most fun of circuits. This circuit is such a driver's favourite. It's featured in all 6 of the FRS seasons so far. It's a 19-turn, 7-kilometre circuit, which goes through massive elevation changes all the way from the bottom of turn 2 up to then turn 6 and 7, and then from there it's downhill all the way back to the start-finish line. Then, in terms of the Kemmel Straight that you see here on screen, this is where drivers will be hitting the highest speeds of the season, 210 miles an hour. In terms of action zones, let's have a look here at La Source, turn number 1. This is, of course, an area where we have seen massive incidents over the years. Think the likes of 2012, 2018, with Fernando Alonso being a victim in both. Then we have Les Combes at the end of the Kemmel Straight. This is the end of that DRS zone. This is where we're going to see a lot of overtakes today, I would imagine, if, of course, the meta 0-0 wing strategy does not play too much of a part in preventing those overtakes. In terms of the tyres, it's much the same as last time out. It is the soft, medium, hard, though the hard and medium seem to be much, much better race tyres. 11 and 15 laps tyre life for the medium and the hard, respectively, and then only 6 for the soft. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, of course, Fraser has taken the lead with an absolutely stellar opening weekend. Win and fastest lap for them, then with Booth, Oscar, Naktrack and Luke rounding out the top 5. Then, for the completion of those top 10 positions from last time out, scoring the points, we've then, of course, got those drivers you can see on screen there. And then we head straight on into the action. So, again, if you were not here during the build-up, if you've only just joined us, my name is Daniel Gilligan, and alongside me today in the virtual commentary box is Harry Zord. Zord, how are we doing once again?
Very well still, very warm. And the weather in Spa virtually here this evening looks lovely, doesn't it? So hopefully we'll have an absolute banger of a qualifying session.
Absolutely, we certainly hope so. That would be a lovely thing to see, and certainly one of the lovely things we're seeing at the moment is Naktrack's Alfa Romeo glistening and gleaming in that Belgian sunlight there, with the white and the red offering a nice pleasant view there for us as they hurtle round on their outlap, and they are getting towards the start-finish line to then begin their first times lap. Now, are they going to take a big wide line here? Yes, they are. So they're going to try and carry as much speed across the line as they possibly can. That's not a line you'll see them do on their actual timed lap, but here we go then. It sets them up nicely. They have the DRS open. Into La Source we go. and then just hitting the apex nicely there, using a bit of that entry curb, and then all the way out to the exit as well. Then down the hill we go, and then it's on towards Eau Rouge and Radion. So through Eau Rouge, then up over the top of the hill, over Radion. All looks fairly textbook so far from the Alfa Romeo driver. They then come on to the Camel Straight now. DRS open once again. And as Fraser was suggesting to us earlier on, there may well be drivers using the incredibly low-wing strategies that we've seen come out as something of a meta setup in recent times, so with the launch of this game. And now, as they're, oh, crikey, that Ferrari is being a little bit brave, jumping into the corner onto the racing line like that. They're going to need to get a bit of a shift on here because Nacktrack is coming quick. And there they are then. So through no-name corner, Ferrari dives out of the way. And Nacktrack is able to continue then into Poo. On we go, the double left-hander. And once more, they've been able to nicely navigate their way through that particular set of corners there. It's then into the Fagnes chicane, and then just riding the curbs as much as they can get away with. Of course, there is still that threat of auto spin, as we've seen in last year's game in particular. And then, of course, onto the exit here of and then into the entry, rather, of Curve Pull Frere. And then we've got basically a big flat-out blast now all the way up towards the bus stop chicane. We will have Blanchimont in the middle of all of that as well. This corner here, in fact, where, of course, Max Verstappen overtook around the outside of Felipe Nasser back in his debut season in 2015, and we have cut away because Villy has gone off of the circuit. Oh dear, Dolphy has set the opening pace. Nacktrack then goes ahead and beats it. With a 1:43, I believe that is. It's a little bit pixely on my end, so I'll have to assume that I've got that correct there.
43.5, yeah.
43.5, excellent, good stuff. And Fraser then, championship leader, has invalidated their lap, so they will not be seeing any glory anytime soon. But now, returning to the FRS, after a one-race absence where they it looked as though they were not going to be able to defend their title all that much for a little while because of controller issues. Bike has gone out, set a time just 0.003 of a second off of Nacktrack's provisional pole time.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of a gap between the front runners on a 43.5, and then we've got Oscar and False Tact around 5-6 tenths behind that. Lazo and Dolphy about 1.5 seconds, as is Nordy now. The two Alpines both on the board. We're currently watching the returning for Season 6 Silver Arrow, Mercedes stalwart, back to try and lay down the manners on some of those who've usurped his Division 1 crown in recent seasons.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And we've seen a great deal of pace from Silver Arrow over the seasons, over the years. In fact, now it's now just about a couple of years that the FRS has been going on at this point. Silver Arrow is featured in the majority of those seasons, and initially started out with racing line on, then changed it at some point to be off completely, and then has gained a huge amount of pace in relearning how to drive without that driver aid as well. So good on them for doing so. And then, of course, we've got Major Castleman, who's the Ferrari we're on board with at the moment. They're now coming up towards the line. They are on a timed lap. How are they going to do? Where will this pop them? And it's fastest. Major Castleman with a major surprise there. Very good opening salvo from them.
Yeah, that's a great lap.
They are, 3/10 quicker than that?
Yeah, that's a really, really solid opening time. I think, we heard from Fraser, we're maybe expecting the absolute pace to get into the 42, so it's still early days. But Castleman will be happy to have that banker on the board. That might even be good enough to get even the lower reaches of the top 10, even if they weren't to improve further into this session.
Absolutely, of course, because in this game, with the just how much the soft tire now burns out and rubs itself away. Then, as we watch Charlie Chibbles now starting their flying lap, we'll stick on board with this for a little while, I would think, and. So through La Source they go. But yeah, the soft tyre then does wear away very, very quickly, especially around this circuit. As we were saying before, 6 laps is realistically the absolute most you're going to be able to get out of them in any competitive state. And then, of course, depending on your setup, it could even be as few as 5 or maybe even 4 if you're then ragging the tyres as well. So not a tyre that's great for the race, but certainly in qualifying, very, very good tyre, and also provides a huge amount of track evolution, being able to lay down that rubber very, very easily, very, very quickly. And then that means that over the course of the session, where, of course, drivers now have 4 sets of tyres available to them rather than 3 and then 1 set of mediums, as was the case in the previous game, it then means that there are just more attempts available for them to go for. and so as a result, we do expect to see a good deal of track evolution as a result of all that. So through Pro on we go then, with the Aston Martin of Charlie Chibbles then, and they are back in PC Division 1. I don't believe they took part last week. Might be wrong there if my memory is failing me already. I'm only in my mid-20s. This is bloody awful. But through Stavolo they go then. See, I can remember corner names very well, but I can't remember who was taking part in this last week. It's absolutely shameful. So, Stavolo then curveball for air, up towards Blanchimont next then. Not this first left-hand kink here that they'll go through, but the next one. And then it'll be on that run up to the bus stop chicane. Now, Zord, tell me your opinion on the use of the term bus stop chicane in the modern day, when, of course, it's no longer officially the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of just a legacy name for it, isn't it? But see Chibbles going to the front row, just 700ths of a second behind Major Castleman. That's another good time. But yeah, I mean, the chicane, it's kind of fiddly, isn't it? Like, it's not quite as bad as the Barcelona chicane from last week. But it's really awkward. There's a really long amount of time you have to wait before you can get the power down. It can make things challenging. I think a lot of the old, what's the right term? The purist would probably have enjoyed the old layout at Spa with the old left, right, right, left. But perhaps this chicane is better as an overtake in place than the old setup would have been.
Yeah, I think a very astute analysis there. I think it's fair to say. That's it. All sounds like I would agree with that. So, one thing that I wouldn't have agreed with you though, on if you had said this earlier on, is that Fraser would invalidate their first-time lap. But now then, we can see them, as I think there was a Williams going off in the background there, certainly a blue car, whatever it was. But no such dramas on the second time round for Fraser so far. Up towards this final chicane then they go, and they chuck the car in, and they get a good bit of rotation on there, it seems. So then all the way up towards the line, how are they going to do? And they go fastest. Of course they do. Is that a 142.8, or am I leaving me there?
It's a 42.8. The first driver into the 42s is Fraser. We've also got Luke, who's up into third place now. Has gone quicker than Chibbles. So the times are beginning to drop, and as we say, Fraser, the first driver into the 42s.
Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic effort from them there. We then got, of course, current second place on the timesheets, Major Castleman, on an outlap, so headed their way towards a second attempt in terms of getting themselves, back onto that provisional pole position. Would certainly be fun. It would certainly be fun to see them in the mix. It would also be fun to see this driver in the mix. Spike, of course, our champion of last season and our only two-time champion ever in PC Division 1. They come up towards the line now. They've got the maximum number of points their rival could have scored last time out. They did so. And then Spike responds now with a 3/10 shy lap there off of what Fraser's been able to do. So still a very good improvement. And that's improved their time by about 3/10 of a second or so. They were about 6/10 off before. So not a bad effort from Spike, who I assume is still having to deal with the lack of force feedback through the controller. I don't believe that issue has been patched yet.
I'm not so sure myself, but we have got 16 cars now on the track, setting what will either be quick laps or in laps. So it's very, very busy out there. Two drivers still without a time on the board are Hugh Sam in the AlphaTauri, who's still in the pit lane, and Silver Arrow in the Mercedes, who's having another go. But we're currently watching Silver Arrow's teammate and runner-up last week in Spain, Booth, who's improving by around 6/10 on this lap. This could get him right up towards the front.
Absolutely, yep. And Booth, of course, we've known him by many names over the seasons. Bahraini Minister of Defence is my personal favourite. But they now head up towards the chicane to round out the lap. They're going to be just behind that AlphaTauri, I think it was, that was just peeling off into the pit lane. But now they've got a clean, uninterrupted run, and it's not a bad effort at all there, is it? Just 1/10 away, closer to 2/10 away from what Fraser's been able to do there. That's a very good effort, especially considering then that Nattrack, Spike, have already done their second runs as well, so that's a legitimate second place. That's not because they're out of sequence or anything like that, or anything along those lines. They have set them within the same couple of minutes time frame as those other drivers setting their times too. So good effort from them as Timolele now peels off into the pits. And we've got then just those two drivers then, Hugh Sam and Silver Arrow, still yet to set the time, both now in the pits. And then we've got there Nordi, and then we've got Penachiro as two of the drivers who are currently out there on circuit and technically capable of doing a lap. But given the flashing red light on the back of Nordi, I'm not sure whether this is a time lap. Do we know if they've been on the lap previous to this one?
I think this is... Yeah, I think this is a slow lap. So we're going to move away from Nordi here, because I think 1 minute 10 at this stage is quite a long way around the lap. Considering we're looking at Oscar now, who's also about 1 minute 10 on the timing board, and is this far around the circuit. There's a yellow flag, who I think that's Penachiro, who's possibly been into the wall, or certainly going slowly. Oscar's actually invalidated this time, so at the moment, we are possibly looking to Chibbles as the driver who might be setting a time here. But I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a little bit of a lull in the session. Castleman has gone second quickest, and Castleman very, very competitive today.
Very competitive indeed. Obviously has made the jump up through the divisions over the seasons and got themselves now to PC Division 1 standard and then some, if these qualifying times are anything to go by. But they're actually... Oh dear, big incident! Big old incident for Charlie Chibbles there, and they've just overcooked it on the exit of Bruxelles. And then on the run down towards No Name Corner, they've then completely dropped it and then hit the wall. That's unfortunate for them, but at least the car is still going, so they can get that back to the pits now and get themselves a new front wing, new set of boots, and then go for another attempt. But yes, back to my point. Whilst Castleman is very impressive and performing very well indeed, I think that it would be a shame if I did not ask you this whilst we have you on this particular week. And that's about a driver who, of course, you've commentated on way back during the PC Division 5 days, and that's Nordi. Nordi now finds himself up in PC Division 1, and whilst their qualifying time currently doesn't look it, certainly based on their performance last week, they are competitive in this division. And so what do you make of that sort of evolution of a driver, if you will, to get themselves from PC Division 5 back in the day to now PC Division 1 standard?
There's a few, aren't there? I mean, Canordi, as he was known back in the day. We've got Castleman, who was previously Captain Minor, who started in Division 8 alongside Coral. I remember the two captains, I think, arrived in Season 3. We had Captain Coral and Captain Minor. Now, with name changes for both, but we've got Coral leading the way in Division 2, would probably be competitive in Division 1, and Castleman right up at the front of Division 1 as well. That's a driver who raced against me in PC Division 6 for the most part of that third season of FRS. And I have not improved at a similar rate, it must be said. So it's very impressive, and it goes to show what practice can do. I know Castleman races in quite a few leagues, so has clearly got up to speed very, very quickly.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that is just that, isn't it? If you're able to practice, if you're able to be constantly competing with drivers of a high level that push you to go higher as well, then you do see that improvement. So it's good for them, good for Castleman, good for Nordi, good for all the other drivers as well who are who you've mentioned there, and anyone else who's found themselves improving. Maybe they're not quite at Division 1 just yet, but we've seen drivers who have come from the lowly divisions of the past and now up into the top end. So it's good. It's nice to see. So in terms of then what we're seeing on track at the moment, well, we see Fraser just improve their time. Castleman has now retired from the session, so they feel as though, and rightly so, I think, if they are the ones currently sat in the garage.
We've only got a minute and a half to go, so you wouldn't even get yourself around the track, would you?
Exactly, yeah. So very sensible, not to waste their own time or anybody else's in terms of trying to get around there. Up to line, Luke goes, and that's likely going to be their last attempt, unless there happens to be anything left in those tyres, but I doubt it very much. And they head up to P4. That's not a bad effort at all from the Red Bull driver.
Dolphy's just gone second.
Yeah, I was about to say, the Red Bulls have suddenly turned up at the end of qualifying. Second and fourth on the grid so far, so they're going to be on the dirty side of the track unless someone is able to jump in ahead of them somewhere, but then of course, that then gives them the other penalty, I suppose, in being further down the order. So here we go then. Here's one driver who might well be able to do that, as someone, Diesel, I think, has jumped up. Then Spike jumps up to P2 as well. Those some very good times coming out all of a sudden from the field. We've seen drivers with a bit of a split early on in the session, with about sort of a half a second off from say the top two. Now the top the top 7 are all within 0.3 of one another. This is very, very close indeed. And Fraser then, the driver who has set an improved time. And is very much on a slow lap this time there, we can see. So over 6 seconds slower on this lap, so they will be bringing it into the pits this time round. But who else is on the circuit? I wonder who else is going to be able to give us a surprise result there. I think a surprise of qualifying for me, there has to be Dizo so far. Dolphy would have taken it if not for Dizo jumping in just ahead of them. It's a very, very good show from these drivers who, in times gone by, we wouldn't necessarily have expected to see them quite this far up the order.
Yeah, very impressed with both Dizo and Dolphy today. They are some great times. Booth has just invalidated at the exit of Puon, so Booth won't improve. We already know that Knack Track won't improve. We've got Silver Arrow going slowly, I think is finished. Maybe Chibbles is the only one who's still in play here.
Absolutely, yep. So let's ride on board with the Aston Martin then, see how they are able to manage to whisper their way around this circuit in the Ardennes. You can see that the clouds have started to gather around the top of your screen there, above the circuit, so that might be lowering the track temperature. It might mean then it's easier for them to keep the tyres in the optimum window, and that might be then why we're seeing this sudden flurry of very, very quick times towards the end of the session. Of course, bearing in mind that we've got that track evolution as well. We've got yellow flags out in parts of the circuit for drivers presumably going slowly. I haven't seen anyone retired owing to those yellows, or in conjunction with those yellows, I should say. So no crashes there that I can see. There was a brief flash of purple there on the mini-map as Charlie Chibbles came across the sector split there for the second sector, so might well have been a purple faster sector for them there. They're now going to get a tow here from the other Aston Martin driver all the way up to the bus stop chicane. Their teammate now dives out of the way. Is that going to have given Charlie Chibbles that extra bit there that they may well have needed to get this car planted high up the order? Well, we'll find out in just a second's time. And across the line goes Charlie Chibbles. Oh, it's only P6, but they're still, I say only P6. That's still just about 2.5 tenths off of pole. And around the longest circuit on the calendar, 2.5 tenths is nothing.
Really, really good session. It's Fraser, once again, who picks up, what must be an umpteenth pole position in PC Division 1. But a Fraser Spike front row. That's essence of Season 5 all over again, isn't it?
It is. This might get spicy, everybody. So let's keep ourselves calm. We can only get so erect. But this is likely to be an interesting race start, especially if we've got you've got to consider the things like the cold tire temperatures that everybody's going to be experiencing at the start here. Especially then if they're cold tire temperatures in the rain, as it has been suggested, we might see some rain. In this one, and so this could be a very, very exciting and chaotic start to the race. Some shambles fit for a Zord stream, I think it's fair to say.
Hey, me at Spa, it's a recipe for disaster. Remember, no formation lap, so once we get into this, it will be straight into the action here with everybody on cold tyres. Hugh Sam's going to be at the back alongside Timalele, both of those two trying to go for the old last to first challenge.
Absolutely. So to give you the full rundown of the order then, we have Fraser in pole position with Spike alongside. And then from third down, we have then Dizo, Dolphy, Major Castleman, Charlie Chibbles, Luke, Booth, Naktrak, Silver Arrow, False Tax, Villy, Oscar, Cattle King, Nordy, Penichiro, Raptor, Lazzo, Timalele, and Hugh Sam at the back of the grid with no time. So there we go. Cold tyres into Eau Rouge. 20 cars going in. This is going to be interesting, everybody. So, as Zord has rightly pointed out there, because we have no formation lap, owing to the various glitches that are associated with that at the moment, we are going to be heading straight into the race as soon as you start to see lights come on. That is us getting ready for race start here. So we'll wait for everybody to ready up to go into the lobby, and then it'll be a case of get your setups and your various fuel loads sorted and all these other bits and pieces, and then we're going straight in. There's no rain. The rain that we were promised is not here. I feel cheated. We have 25 seconds until race starts, Zord. So what do you think? Do you feel cheated?
Maybe, but I reckon there'll be enough action to keep us interested here. I'd expect, based on those qualifying times, it might be the top 9. Maybe if Silver Arrow can hang on the top 10, but then I think there might be a little bit of a split in the field. Seems to be something of a gap in pace back to those in the latter half of the field.
Excellent. Good stuff. And that was a speedy summary of thoughts as we now head down to the grid And we will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out very quickly there. No time to hold whatsoever. And away we go. And it looks like a very good start from Fraser there. And big slide there from the AlphaTauri of Diesel behind. They then clatter into the Red Bull. That's either of Luke or Dolphy. I don't know which one. And there's a big incident. That's Spike round. Spike gets dropped all the way down now to the back of the field. They hit the wall. That's Nordy. No, Nordy's hit the wall. Nordy is out. So both Alpines were round. One of them has now hit the wall and retired immediately from this race. That means that Fraser has disappeared off into the distance. Castleman has inherited second place, and we've got a virtual safety car after just a couple of corners.
It's a disaster for Alpine. Its Spike has gone from the front row down to P17, and possibly with damage to that car. I'm not sure. I'm not checking the wing right now. But Nordy straight into the barriers at the exit of turn 1. Well, it's not the first time we've seen Nordy have a swift retirement at Spa, unfortunately. The big winner there, False Tax, up to P4.
That's an expert bit of manoeuvring there from False Tax. I don't know how they've been able to do that without any damage on their car. It seems all in one piece. That's very impressive indeed, excuse me. But yeah, there we are then. In terms of the tyre... God, excuse me. The tyre strategies then. Obviously, we can see them now on screen. The majority of the field on the medium tyres. We've then got Castleman on the hards. We've also got Timalele. We've got Husam, Booth, Raptor, Spike, and Cattle King all on the hard tyre. So they clearly think that having the pace later on in this race is going to be where the race is won and lost, rather than trying to be pacey at the start as we go green once again then. And we are racing once more at Belgium. I think that Castleman has been caught napping there, or possibly a bad tyre warm-up on those hard tyres. So they're now going to have to defend quite hard from Dolphy in the Red Bull, from False Stack just behind. And now the three of them go barreling down into that final chicane. But now there's side-by-side action there. Look at that, Dolphy alongside Major Castleman. Are they going to be able to complete this move round the outside? It doesn't look like it, but now further back down the order, it's a nightmare for the other Red Bull. Luke has been tapped round by Oscar there. Oscar, oh dear, that's not what we wanted to see whatsoever from the McLaren. Is this an omen of things to come for a certain driver called Oscar in the real world? I certainly hope not. And False Tax then, and Dolphy and Major Castleman, and now also Charlie Chibbles joining that mix, have been able to get through La Source unscathed, and now go chasing on after one another down the Camel Straight. Now there's now a 3-second time penalty has been applied to Spike of all drivers. The driver is usually very good in terms of their track limits, but now look at this. False Facts on their charge is now headed up for the podium positions. Maybe they've been able to force the Red Bull to go very deep into Lake Com, and now they're side by side headed through Malmedy. This right-hander here, but that's going to open the door potentially to Charlie Chibbles here. That's forcing the Williams to go defensive. Now they go quite deep, and it's very understeering Bruxelles. That means that Charlie Chibbles is able to slot it up the inside and get up into P4 in the Aston Martin.
Frantic stuff in the early stages here. We've had Booth in the pit lane in the Mercedes, and we totally missed that Raptor hit the wall at the exit of curve Paul Frere. So we've lost one of the Ferraris as well.
Dear oh dear, that's not what the folks at Marilena will be wanting to see. Though, of course, I'm sure that their team principal will say that nothing needs changing and everything is absolutely hunky-dory. But as we go back to the action then, we've got Spike on the back of Lazzo at the moment, the Williams driver who was going to race in the division below this one, but then ended up getting a promotion even before the first round of the season. So
we've lost Dolphy! We've lost Dolphy!
Oh, no! Dolphy! No! What on earth has happened there? Oh, that's not what we want to see at all. They've lost their front wing. It might well be that through Curve Paul Frere, that has been a corner in the past where if you don't quite get your entry line correct in terms of your positioning of where the car goes, as Spike has been able to get themselves past Lazzo there, and Charlie Chibbles and False Tax both being promoted up the order now because of that incident for Dolphy, I should say. I was forgetting my Red Bulls there for a moment, but so Red Bull have gone from excellent start to, oh dear, that's not a very good lap 3. So down the hill towards Eau Rouge and then up over the top of Randion we will go in just a few moments' time. We're having a look at Villy, a driver who, of course, had an incident during qualifying, lost the front wing, now having to work their way up the order. They've got their teammate Naktrack just tucked in behind them as well, and now they're going to power on down the Camel Straight here. They might be able to get nice and close to Hugh Sam in front, but Hugh Sam, a driver who I think we should be giving some props to here, because Hugh Sam has gone from last place up to now 8th position.
Well, also Timalele on the hard tyres and the Haas has gone from 19th to P6. As always, or so often is the case in FRS qualifying, unless you're Fraser, means very, very little. But at the front, the McLaren is out of sight.
Absolutely. He has checked out. He has gotten away by over a second a lap on average so far. 3.3 seconds their lead over Major Castleman at the moment, who of course has been having to deal with attacks from Dolphy and now from Charlie Chibbles as well. The gap at least a little bit larger for them this time. Yeah, Battle King. And Dieso round as well. That's not good at all. And Dieso, of course, was running very high in qualifying, but then I think just caught up in that incident at turn 1. I think there was contact between them and the Red Bull. Oh, no! Oh, Spike having to avoid there the stationary Alfa Romeo of Villy. Raptor has left the session now after their crash earlier on, and Villy then another driver who has come a cropper at Curveball Frere. Now, could this be heavy fuel loads, very, very low wings, and therefore just not enough downforce and grip to get through that corner?
They've all gone. They kind of all had to go for 0-0 wings because those at the front were so competitive in terms of qualifying lap time that you couldn't afford to not go for 0-0 wings. And we've got cars all over the place here. It's only lap 4.
It's only lap 4 indeed, and we're now on board with Penichiro in the Aston Martin. They've got their teammate Hugh Sam just in front. No, sorry, not their teammate. They've got Sam in front of them, well, that's not bad going for Penichiro to be where they are, but they are going to be the first on a scheduled stop at least. These drivers we're seeing at the moment pitting for damage to their cars and needing to get that repaired. Yeah, so Penichiro then will have to just continue on their strategy. They're most likely going to go for the hard tyre and then try and stretch that out all the way to the end, which those hard tyres definitely could do. It would be a much more of an ask, though, if you were trying to get that out of the medium tyres. Of course, we predicted those about 11 laps of tyre life there earlier on. Booth then gets up and in front of Nattrack. So those two drivers still battling out at the rear end of the field now, and through the use of the DRS and, of course, the new tyres on their car as well, Booth is able to get a purple first sector. Luke now goes up the inside of Lazzo, heads up into P11 in this race, and they are going to continue keeping on and trying to make some good way back up the field and try and do as much recovery as they possibly can. So we are going to apparently there's some inside info in the chat here. Apparently around about half race distance we are going to see some rain. That's according to Arend97. So lap 11, keep an eye out for some drops on the cars there, Harrington.
I mean, if there's one thing this race needs, it's a bit more chaos, I would say. We had both Alfa Romeos under pits there on the same lap. We've got Husam, who was pressuring Timolele, now under pressure from Penichiro, who is the soft shod car amongst a sea of hard tyres there. That was an Alpine having a look at the inside of Spike. And Spike making moves, but maybe too many moves.
Too many moves indeed, and they just light up the rear tyres there. I think that's something to do with their lack of force feedback there. They may well have been able to feel that under normal conditions, but because there's no force feedback through the controller at the moment, because of the various problems with the game, they may well just then been a bit too harsh on acceleration there. Spike, as I say, the only two-time champion in PC Division 1, only driver to claim multiple titles in this top flight division in the FRS, so we know that they are not a slouch, they're not a mistake maker, generally speaking. Very consistent driver, very, very difficult to battle with them because they are just so consistent usually, but that mistake there, very uncharacteristic of them, as False Tax picks up a 3-second time penalty whilst running around in P4 in this race.
It's worth pointing out that Spike's penalty early in the race wasn't for track limits, it was actually for ignoring a yellow flag. So that is a 5-second penalty awarded for Spike. Obviously, it's so early in the race that he's going to have to serve that when he comes into the pits regardless.
Absolutely, yep. And so, as a result, even if it might have been something harshly applied by the game, of course, it's been known that the game will apply penalties to you if, under dubious circumstances at best, shall we say. But given it's this early in the race, they do have another stop to do. They will have to serve it. There will be no way for it to be removed from their overall race time, unfortunately for them. So then, we continue to watch these two squabbling with one another. We are watching Charlie Chibbles fighting with Major Castleman. And now we cut to Oscar in the McLaren. The McLaren that's a bit further down the order, it's fair to say, than their teammate leading the race at the moment, but they are still in the fight there. And I think at this stage, lap 6, this is when we were imagining that those soft tyres will start to die off. So I would imagine then that on traction here, the McLaren is going to have a much better run down now towards Eau Rouge and Radion. And then, of course, the Camel straight after that, then Penichiro. They're going to go up and over the top of the hill. Then we watch from the onboard of Spike here, trying to recover now after having been ahead of Penichiro Giro briefly headed into La Source. But now you can see there, DRS is open on the McLaren. They swoop past, but also the Alpine swoops past as well. Good bit of overspeed and good bit of opportunistic driving there from Spike to be able to get up the inside, not the inside, around the outside into Les Combes of the Aston Martin there of Penicheiro. Penicheiro, I think, now regretting those soft tyres. They're dropping like stone. It would have been better for them, I think, to have... oh, dear, and who's this? Dolphy! Dolphy's in the walls again! Oh, no! And they've done so, put it in the wall on the start-finish straight just after the pit entry. So they've now got to do a whole lap of this circuit with no front wing. Oh, dear, oh, dear.
It's a tough gig sometimes, isn't it? Few drivers struggling who did well in qualifying. We were singing the praises of Diesel and Dolphy, and unfortunately it's not worked out for them in the race. Penicheiro dropping like a stone now on those soft tyres. They're struggling after just 5 laps. This is the 6th lap that we've seen from that tyre. Silver Arrow on the mediums here, under pressure from the 2 hard tyre runners of Timolele and Hugh Sam. As I think that's Villy off at Les Combes.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot there. We've also, just in terms of spotting in... Oh, and have a look at this then. Round the outside goes Hugh Sam on Timolele there. Brilliant bit of late braking around the outside there to be able to throw their AlphaTauri around the outside of the Haas there. Good bit of driving from them. But Silver Arrow, who is just at the head of this little cohort of cars here, as Penicheiro dives into the pits, as we expected. Silver Arrow has actually lost a part of their front wing. I think it's the end plate on the right-hand side of the front wing there is completely gone from Silver Arrow's car. There you see.
Yeah, can confirm.
As they head up over the top. Yeah, so there we go. And unlike earlier patches, earlier versions of this game, front wing damage does now actually affect you. Whereas you could run around with an orange wing and everything was just absolutely fine and dandy. But now the only orange wings that are any good are the ones on the front of these McLarens, the likes of Oscar and Fraser, of course. And so those guys, it seems now that Silver Arrow is a bit of a cork in the bottle then for all the drivers behind. And, that's someone being obscured by a tree. And now Booth is the driver revealed to be that driver. And around the outside of Penicheiro, there you go. Penicheiro's, of course, just come out of the pits on those hard tyres, which they intend to take to the end of this race. And they will, of course, be very cold at this point as well. So, life not easy for them. And now, Silver Arrow being harassed by Hugh Sam. And they are just really struggling with the end plate there. I mean, they were on the back of False Tax and Charlie Gibbles and Major Castman earlier on in this race. Now False Tax and Silver Arrow have both dropped back from the drivers in front of them respectively. So I suspect that maybe there may have been some contact between the pair of them, which has then caused the loss of the front wing end plate for Silver Arrow, and then maybe, False Tax is then possibly then just dropped back away from those guys in front.
Oh no!
Contact! Big contact! What on earth was that from Timolele? Goodness gracious me, they just went... that was rude. That was something where you needed to ask them a drink and buy them some chocolates or something. For how hard they rammed.
We've got a virtual safety car. We've got a virtual safety car. Timolele, front wing entirely gone, and now has to go around the whole circuit. The virtual safety car will actually help in that regard, but was clearly just missed his braking spot there, going into the chicane, and Hugh Sam actually picked up a corner cutting penalty for running across the chicane there as well.
That's going to be something that will rile up Hugh Sam to no end, I would imagine. So unfortunate for them to be caught up in all of that. Not only that, but they'll have suffered damage. I'm not sure of the specifics of the damage settings we're using, but of course, in this game, you can, under the right settings, suffer from damage to your rear wings, your diffusers, the floor, the side pods. It's not just the front wing anymore. So, as a result, if we do have those settings enabled, and forgive me, I don't actually know off the top of my head, but then that does mean then that life for Hugh Sam may be very painful for the rest of this race. As we go green once again then, and then into Pouhon we go, and it looks like there may have been a tap there from the Williams up the back of the struggling Haas, but then Hugh Sam is able to then slot their way up the inside, and they now go chasing after the driver who forced them off the circuit, smacked up the back of them, caused that VSC arguably, and then they slot through and by them in the Fagny chicane. Then through Stavolo and Kurt Paul Frere, they are already leagues ahead, whilst now the Williams is going to have to do the job all over again. And there we go, they get by Timolele, And Timolele, a real surprise to see, of all the drivers, Timolele struggling with that braking zone incident there.
Yeah, I think
very good.
I think Lazzo in Poo on there. I don't know if Lazzo was actually aware that Timolele was missing a front wing, so just didn't expect the Haas to be so slow in that corner. I'm not sure if that was either just not having any communication with an engineer or a miscommunication there, but I think got away with it. Doesn't look to be too much damage to that Williams, and the Haas does box now. But there seems to be a Red Bull in the way that's caused him to stop.
So that was the retired Nordy, not Nordy, sorry, Dolphy. Don't know why I said Nordy. Dolphy retiring in the pit lane, and for the first time that I've ever seen, yeah, as you say, and as we saw, a Red Bull just stationary in the pit lane, in the fast lane, and luckily it disappeared pretty sharpish after the Haas arrived, but I suppose you could say that's a penalty then for Timolele for having caused that incident, which was entirely avoidable. So there we go then. Lazzo continues to circulate round, doing some good lap times at the moment, doing some good work on those medium tyres. Of course, they and then the likes of Fraser, Charlie Chibbles, False Tanks, Look, and Booth, they're all going to have to go into the pits at some point to change onto the hard tyres, most likely. Unless, of course, they can do some godly work to get towards, making the softs viable at the end of the race. But Castleman got a 3-second time penalty, according to GG Charlie.
Yeah, he picked that up. He picked that up under the VSC, which will have been a frustrating one because you'd really rather not be getting one of your corner cutting penalties at a time when you're not actually at racing speed. So Castleman will be kicking himself for that one. It kind of gives. Oh, that's Booth in the wall.
Oh dear, no, Booth. Oh, nobody tell Millo. So Booth then in the wars, and I mean the car looks to be okay. Whether or not that is the case, I'm sure we will see in the next few laps in terms of their lap times. As now Spike comes into the pit lane. No time penalty for them for speeding into the pits, so that's good at least. But now they will have to serve a 5-second penalty here. So car will stop. Come to a standstill, they will have to all wait there, and then eventually, then they get to work. So there go the Alpine mechanics. They get the new wheels on his wagon, and away he goes. So Spike then has served that time penalty. They're going to now get some nice clean air, hopefully, to be able to put those tyres to good use. And it's medium tyres they've gone on to.
Whoa, steady on.
Big tail happy moment there, almost a carbon copy of what we saw at the start of the race for Nordy. And, well, there we go then. So Spike out of the pits then, onto medium tyres, and this early. I mean, it sort of strikes me as very bizarre because, you know, we were told, presume that there might be some rain at about lap 11, as we see there, the Alfa Romeo Nac getting up into P10. And Spike started on the hard tyres, and they're supposed to be able to go for 15 laps. So unless there was some damage to Spike that we hadn't seen, that forced them to pit. But that being said, it looked like a quick stop after the penalty was served, so they didn't change a front wing. And Villiers left the session now as well after their retirement at some point in this race.
I think that was in the pit lane, that one, yeah.
Okay, there we are then. Yes, there's the slow-moving dot on the map. So yeah, that's absolutely right. And so Fraser then comes around the final turn to finish lap 10. And start lap 11. So this is around about the lap where we think that medium tyre runners are going to start to come in. That's the thought, at least. Whether or not it comes true is perhaps a different matter altogether. So it might be then that the likes of Charlie Chibbles, who's decided to go into the pits this lap rather than the end of lap 11. The end of lap 10 rather than the end of lap 11, I should say. They might be able to actually get a huge amount of benefit here in doing so, because we saw earlier on, did we not, with Penichiro on the softs, those softs were predicted to last for 6 laps. They got to the 6th lap of the race, and they died pretty much at the start of that lap rather than the end of it. So what do you reckon? By staying out extra lap longer, are those medium tyre runners going to suffer towards the end of this lap, do you think?
Well, I think what we've seen normally, traditionally, it's the undercut you're looking for, but certainly the Division 2 race last week, it was actually the overcut that was powerful, because the warm-up on these tyres is very, very, very tricky. It's almost like what you see in Formula 2, where the car that comes out the pit needs to spend sort of a lap and a half getting those tyres into the right temperature window to be able to get the performance from them. So we've seen Chibbles go into the pits early in that fight with Castleman for P2. Now under a little bit of pressure from Lazzo, so it'll be interesting to see how quickly those tyres come up to speed.
Absolutely. Yep. And well, then it's the order is a bit jumbled now, but we've got drivers who are getting themselves into the right rhythms and where they need to be. So we will keep an eye on Charlie Chibbles, and then we'll see where they come out relative to the likes of Falstax and of course Fraser, who we're expecting to come in at the end of this lap. And yes, indeed, Fraser is in with their Sebastian Vettel style helmets that they've got on there in their car, and down towards the McLaren garage they go. The boys and girls from Woking get to work, and that looks like a quick stop to me. So there we are then, and that's Fraser on their way on the hard tyres now until the end of this race, unless of course something mysterious happens between now and then. And out the pits they come then. Whereabouts will they filter out? Well, they will be in third place overall, but just about 2.9 seconds, or 3.5 seconds, now it's jumping up a bit there as they come out the pits, but yeah, just over 3 seconds off the back of False Tax, who in turn is about 10.5 seconds off the back of Major Castleman. So it's now going to be all about how they bring these tyres into the temperature window, how they are able to get competing and going and that sort of thing. And then it's all about then what the drivers behind are able to do. So we can see here Silver Arrow on relatively young hard tyres has essentially done a great big massive undercut and now gets past Capital King. Up into P6 goes the Mercedes driver, and they are now on the hunt after Charlie Chibbles with a full front wing this time though, so they may stand a bit more of a fighting chance in being able to hunt down the Aston Martin. But here we see the other Aston, that being a Penichiro. Obviously started on the softs, then had to go straight to the hards at the end of lap 6. And now they are going to continue bombing around until the end of this one. And we've got some other drivers, likes of Cattle King, Hugh Sam, False Tax, and Major Castleman, all yet to pit. And they might end up falling back down towards the likes of Penichiro towards the end of this race.
I was going to make a point on Fraser that he'll have no idea the chaos that has ensued in this race. He's been in clear air at the front, no real idea what's going on behind him. And then he's come out of the pits into a chasm of space here between False Tax and Hugh Sam. And to be honest, he might be wondering where the hell everybody else is today.
Yeah, it's been a very plain sailing race for them so far. And then, of course, all their championship rivals. I mean, we look to runners-up last time, that being, of course, the likes of Booth and Oscar. They're all the way down at the bottom end of the order. Spike missed out on the last race and now has turned up here and is currently in P14. That means that really Fraser's going to have a very healthy lead at the top of this championship if they do end up winning this one. And then it's going to be a real mishmash of drivers behind in terms of then what we see in terms of their championship totals. So we can also see that Dolphy's in the chat now. And they were doing, I'm going to paraphrase here, silly stuff. Because they stopped with the focus after they were 20 seconds back. And they also tell us that it's also going to be likely that rain will actually hit around 2 or 3 laps from the end. So unlikely that we're going to be able to see a sort of a late race shambles, because I feel like 2 or 3 laps for the rain, unless it's heavy rain coming down all at once. 2-3 laps, I think, is long and is a short enough period of time where you won't really run into many struggles on slick tyres, will you?
Well, it seems nice and sunny right now. In terms of the strategy of this race, we've got Cattle King here on an old set of hard tyres, very much just going about their own business and trying their best to keep out of trouble. But Luke, Knacktrack, and to an extent Oscar behind are all wanting through to get up the road after the departing Silver Arrow, who is disappearing away up the road as the Haas slows down the Red Bull and the Alfa Romeo. We've now got Fraser moving up to the back of False Tax, up towards the front as well. Fastest lap of the race for the McLaren driver.
Absolutely, yep. So Fraser, in case anybody needed reminding, very fast. And all up the inside there goes a very opportunistic Knacktrack. And that forces Luke then to the inside, taking that tighter line around the second part of the chicane onto the start-finish straight. It looks like they're safe from any reprisals now, though. And as they head into La Source, then they're going to have the DRS on the Camel Straight. And hopefully they're going to do exactly what Fraser's just done for False Tax there. Simple move, DRS enabled, and get by. But the proof will be in the pudding And so now over the top of Radion they go. We're going to watch from Naktrak's T-Cam here, and the DRS is open. They go to the inside, off of the racing line, and they get the move sorted. But so does Naktrak, past Cattle King as well, and Hugh Sam is off the road. Oh no, Hugh Sam, why? As now, suddenly over the top of the hill comes Silver Arrow, looming large in their mirrors.
Yeah, it's a mistake from Hugh Sam on old hard tyres. Has dropped it. It's a kind of a weird place to drop it at the sort of halfway into Lecom. Was seemed to be quite early in that gravel trap, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But Cattle King has lost out to all of Luke, Naktrak, and Oscar. Their apologies for Lance Stroll style cutting away from that one in the middle of the fight. But yeah, we had Hugh Sam in the gravel and now under heavy pressure from Silver Arrow.
Heavy pressure indeed, yeah, and that's the real key here, I think, for both drivers is, of course, Hugh Sam's going to want to defend their position as much as they can, but Silver Arrow wants to get past, and both of them also don't want to end up coming a cropper with one another and causing themselves damage. And, oh, there's a driver who's caused themselves damage and come a cropper, yes indeed, that is Oscar. And they have clouted the wall on the exit of, where's that? That's exit of Stavelo and then the entry to Curve Paul Frere. Which is where they're just going to go through now, and those tyres are probably going to be very, very cooked at this point. Lots of rubbers has been laid down there, but they've got themselves going again. We don't have VSC or a safety car at this stage, so that's good. Hugh Sam has elected to fight another day and go into the pits, which has then, of course, released Silver Arrow. They now have an 8.7 second gap to Charlie Chibbles in front that they now need to overcome. Will they be able to do it? Well, we will see. What might be a bit more interesting will be the fight between Silver Arrow and False Tax later on in this race, because of course False Tax still needs to pit for the hard tyres, and then we'll take them to the end of this race, and that's then going to mean they'll have a big tyre advantage over Silver Arrow when they eventually do pit. And when they come out, they'll be, what's that going to be? Very quick mental maths. 10-15 seconds off the back, so it will be doable, but not the easiest thing in the world.
I mean, we're running out of laps here. It's going to be the start of lap 16 when Castleman comes across the line at the end of this one. Now, I guess the question we're wondering is, Castleman's almost got a... Well, he's in a fight with Chibbles, isn't he? He was very, very close to Charlie Chibbles earlier in the race. He does have that 3-second penalty. I'm wondering now whether Castleman's considering boxing soon for the medium tyre, or whether he's going to try and push this all the way for soft tyres if he expects that rain might be coming towards the end of this race. Always better to be on the soft tyre if the track is starting to get a little bit of dampness in it.
Absolutely, yep. The softer the compound, and of course the newer the compound as well, which of course it would be if they went much deeper into the race to then try and get the softs to work, because they have that very limited lifespan around this circuit, then that is going to make life an awful lot easier for you in damp conditions. And as we say all that, False Tax into the pits, and that then will promote Charlie Chibbles up to third place, and Silver Arrow, we imagine, will come past. Yep, there they go. And interesting choice. Soft tyres. Well, that might, False Tax there.
Yeah, that might give us a clue as to what Castleman's planning here, because that is a long way to go on the soft tyre. That's a good, well, if it's 6 laps, isn't it? 6-7 laps. So we saw how much Penichero was struggling earlier in the race after just 5 laps of life. But that was, of course, with a full tank of fuel. You always think with a lighter car, the tyres can go a little bit further. The gap to watch up at the front is that total gap between Castleman and Chibbles, which is around 20 seconds at this stage.
Absolutely. Now, it's being mentioned in the chat here, and I want your perspective on this, because you've got a much better view of the game screen. But there's some questioning right now as to whether, as Spike, we catch them getting their time penalty there, unfortunate for them. But there are some whispers that maybe some people have seen rain. Can you confirm or deny this information?
Well, there's not very much showing up on the screen. The clouds are certainly coming over, so that sunshine that we had is no longer in there. I'm not seeing much in the way of drops of water, but it's certainly darker and gloomier than it previously was.
And so then, I suppose that leads me to my next question, which is then, if you are Major Castleman, and you know that Fraser is about 9 seconds behind you, gaining, but still 9 seconds... Do you hold out for wet conditions at the very death of this race and try and preserve your tyres all the way as far as you can take them to that wet point? Or do you take the safe option and go for the softs or the mediums in the next lap or two?
It's a gamble, isn't it? Because you would for the intermediates to happen, you would need the rain to come down hard and fast. Now, if that happens, the last thing you want to be on is an old set of hard tyres that have probably gone beyond their shelf life.
Absolutely, yeah, no, I completely agree with that assessment. Dolphy's saying if he wants to win, he needs to stay out. So Dolphy's had their say as the Div 1 driver in the chat at the moment. And we now go to Spike. Spike, who has picked up 2 time penalties over the course of this race. 1 for corner cutting and 1, of course, earlier on that was the 5-second penalty. I forget exactly what that was for. But there we are. So they've served 1 of those penalties in the pits. And now they are 7/10 off the back of Dieso for their final points-paying position. And if they had not had to serve that 5-second time penalty, well, they'd be up around about where sort of Cattle King or possibly even False Tax is right now. So that would have been of benefit to them as yellow flags in the first sector. And what could that be for, I wonder?
It's
no,
Dieso.
Sector 2, I should say. It's Dieso. What has happened to Dieso there, Zord?
I'm not sure. He was going slowly on the right-hand side of the circuit. I'm not sure if he's been in the barrier. There's not a lot of damage to the car, so he might have just dropped it at the end of the last part of Le Com. A couple of fights starting to brew on the circuit. Cattle King and Penichiro both in the points on the hard tyres. Cattle King actually yet to stop in this race. So very much going for the Castleman approach. As Oscar gets a 3-second time penalty at the back of the field. We've also got Luke edging up towards the back of Silver Arrow, who's now very much doing the George Russell approach today, now up into P4. And further up the road, Fraser now really, really beginning to eat into Castleman's advantage. And Charlie Chibbles is sort of coming with him, though Fraser's getting there at a faster rate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that so currently we're on lap 18, and Cattle King, as far as I can see, is on the lead lap. And yes, okay, yeah. So no, sorry, they weren't on the lead lap previously, or rather, they weren't on the same lap as the race leader. Well, they were and they weren't. They weren't lapped, but they weren't on lap 18, if that makes sense. So they were showing up as a younger tyre life than Castleman. So I was wondering if Cattle King had pitted at the start of the race on lap 1, for example. But no, that's not the case. They have just gone very deep into this race. And now we see up the inside goes Hugh Sam on Dieso. And, they're side by side. The AlphaTauris don't hit each other, boys. And, yeah, there you go. Hugh Sam up in front of Dieso. And Lazzo thought to maybe follow them through there. But it wasn't to be on that particular occasion. So they will have to keep on keeping on and have another attempt somewhere around the lap. But of course, Dieso's now going to try and defend as much as they possibly can, so then their teammate can get away. And now we see that's False Tax in the other Williams with a brand new set of soft tyres and easily monsters their way by Knacktrack there.
That was a brave move. That was very much a move of like, I need to get this done immediately. So you're basically going to have to get out of my way, Knacktrack, or we're going to have an accident here. In the pits for the soft tyre, Castleman, and also Luke has cleared Silver Arrow at some point on this lap as well.
Absolutely, yep. So that's all academic then, as they say. And Castleman will be passed by Charlie Chibbles, but the gap is not a huge one. In fact, there it is. There is the Aston Martin. So now, 3 laps until the end of the Grand Prix. Castleman has their target in their sights.
It's raining. It's definitely raining now.
Oh, dear. It's raining now. It's raining, and it might even be raining tears inside of that Ferrari helmet, because if they'd been able to just stick it out now, then maybe go to Inters on the final lap or something like that, then that might well have been Major Castleman getting the win here today. No, it's not to be, or at least not so far. So, Silver Arrow and Luke there, both still going and still pretty much joined at the hip with one another there for that fight for 4th place. Well, Major Castleman is going to have a relatively easy time of it, I think, in terms of getting those tyres switched on, then getting onto the back of Charlie Chibbles, and then getting that move done. Then there's definitely not enough time for them to catch by normal conventional means. Fraser in this race, they will have a lot more pace than them. I would not be surprised if they got fastest lap at the end of this race as well. I mean, I'm lost for words. If the rain is coming down, no, Major Castleman, no! Why would you do that? Just towed a little bit too far over the exit curb, but the exit was below there, and that means they now carry 6 seconds of time penalties here. So unless they're able to get that move done pretty sharpish and Charlie Chibbles and then disappear up the road, I think that's all hopes of P2 gone for them.
I was about to say two things that Castleman needs to do. He needs to not make any mistakes, like we've just seen in picking up another 3-second time penalty as he goes to the inside of Charlie Chibbles into turn 1. Traction should be better on the soft tyre. Not quite.
It should be better. I think that what they may well be doing there is I feel like halfway through that overtake attempt, they suddenly realised, oh yeah, there's the Camel Straight coming, and they might just be able to get back at me here. So why don't I follow them up the hill with all that extra grip I've got, then use the DRS myself rather than be attacked with the DRS. There we go. They're up and past and already steaming away. And now with the clean air, they're basically going to be unaffected by DRS for the rest of this lap. So they can now just focus on putting in some good lap times and disappearing off into the distance as quickly as they can.
So with 3 laps to go, 2.5 laps to go, really, what Castleman needs now is for it to rain to an extent that Fraser either needs to box or starts losing multiple seconds per lap. We need Fraser to lose in the region of like 5 or 6 seconds a lap to Castleman for him to overcome both the 10.5 second gap on the track as Hugh Sam retires from the session. Is that too late for a safety car?
Oh, I think it might be, you know. I think that's just a bit too late in the day. We might get a VSC, which, of course, would then kill any chances of excitement in this race at the end here. But, yeah, look at that there. Major Castleman is catching and is pulling away from Charlie Chibbles as well, but it's not by, I think, the convincingly large amount that it needs to be. I mean, it is now up to 2.2 seconds from Charlie Chibbles. So, I mean, if they're able to average a 2-second improvement this lap, the next lap, and the final lap, then that will do it for them. But it's still a big old mountain to climb.
I think Castleman will get the gap to Chibbles. I think Chibbles is really going to be struggling on those hard tyres. You see, it's not raining sort of extensively, but it's going to be a low grip surface. Now, as I said, Castleman wants it to rain not too much more, but just a little bit more, just to make life even more difficult for those hard tyre runners who are going to be sweating their way through the last 2 laps here. As we see, actually, Cattle King is off the circuit again on the soft tyres.
Oh dear. So soft tyres are no guarantee of safety then, if that's anything to go by. As we've seen there from Cattle King, who is unfortunately way down at the back end of the order now, and will no longer be a factor in this race as a result. But look at this then. Knack is on the soft tyre, very close to the back of Dizo. And now, with a little bit of help from DRS here, as well as then, of course, the time penalties for Dizo as well. They already have this position technically, but they'll now go around the outside, be able to brake much later into Lake Com, and then round the outside they go. Good bit of overtaking there from Knack towards the end of this race. That's going to guarantee them at least 1 point, unless, of course, they're able to get
Castleman's
onto the back
out!
of Kimalele. Oh, no! Major Castleman, no! What on earth have you done, dear boy? He has decided to go ahead and bin it, and it's around this same sort of point in the lap as we saw Cattle King lose it as well. So this is potentially the big danger zone in the lap, around about the Fania chicane. And, oh dear, that is not what you want to see. And Major Castleman leaving the session most likely in disgust. Well, that was all shaping up to be a fantastic result for them. But as has been pointed out in the chat has gotten there before me. But Zord, I think we can call this a shambles.
That's heartbreaking. That's really, really rough on Castleman. But, you know, it's Division 1. You'll know it's a really high standard here. And you need to run that sort of pace to keep yourself in play. He could have just edged off a little bit to guarantee himself a podium. But, you know, he's been so competitive here. He was trying to get after Fraser. And he's paid the ultimate price.
He has, but now I think one driver who's been patient and biding their time, allowed themselves to be overtaken earlier on, now is basically touching front wing to diffuser on their rival Luke just in front of them. This now for a podium position. Silver Arrow opens up the DRS, is going to make use of the overtake as well, I would imagine. And now they go steaming up the inside into Lake Com. Is it going to be a move? Is it going to be a brilliant last lap attempt from Silver Arrow? They're now side by side. They go to Malmedy. It's the right-hander. Are they going to be able to get this done? They just managed to squeeze the Red Bull out onto the outside of the circuit. Now into Bruxelles they go. They're still side by side. Look at this, and they're going to continue round this understeering right-hander corner. And Silver Arrow's ahead. Silver Arrow has been able to get their Mercedes ahead of the Red Bull, and that's a brilliant bit of driving, a great bit of awareness to be able to know that the last lap was when to go for the move, and they've gotten it done.
That was absolutely superb from the pair of them, to be fair. But Silver Arrow spotted the opportunity. He went to the inside. I think all convention and wisdom there said that he was going to have to go to the outside. Luke was trying to force him to the outside and just leave a car's width. Chibbles has left the session narrowly to the end. Fraser about to win this one.
Absolutely. Through the final corner then, a commanding race performance there. There was shambles throughout the rest of the field, but across the line comes Fraser, giving us a little pirouette as well, and they win the Belgian Grand Prix. It's 2 wins on the bounce in the first 2 rounds of the season, but super sub today, Charlie Chibbles comes across the line in P2 for Aston Martin, and will pick up some good points and a good podium position. To round out the podium then, we believe it's going to be Silver Arrow. Yes, it is. So Silver Arrow comes across the line. Brilliant recovery from them. But now Nattrack is fighting. They've got those soft tyres. It's the last couple of corners. They get past Benichiro. They go up now into the final chicane. Will they be able to get nice and close to the back of Spike? Yes, they are. They're close enough. Where this time penalty will now demote Spike down the order. So Nattrack up into 6th place by the end of this race. What a brilliant race from them.
Well, frantic final lap once again here in PC Division 1. We're going to cog on backwards across the line, and there's Booth saying hello to Diesel there as we come across the line. But really, it's all about Fraser today. Just commanded that race.
Absolutely, yeah. Never looked in any doubt at any point, unless, of course, that rain had come down much harder whilst Major Carson was still on those hard tyres. Then, maybe we would have then seen some interesting action for the win of this one. But in terms of what we've seen here today, oh goodness gracious me, we always love coming to Spa here. I've commentated on this track umpteen number of times recently in different categories and different series and different this and that and the other. It always produces good racing.
We had a few different strategies on the go there. A couple of drivers boxed for the soft tyre right towards the end of the race. But as I said earlier on, Fraser really had no idea that any of that was going on. Just serene progress at front.
Absolutely, yeah. Driver of the day, according to the game, is Benichiro. I will ask you now, Zord. Who is your driver of the day?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd be biased if I said Silver Arrow, clearly. But I'm looking towards the drivers who stayed out of trouble today. So I'm going to give a shout out to the likes of Silver Arrow. Chibbles did very well, despite the crash of his PC on the last lap. I think Castleman deserves a mention because he was very, very strong today. But I think my driver of the day is this man, Fraser.
I think it's a very fair pick. I think that Fraser is definitely deserving of it with how well they were able to command that race today. I think as well, honourable mentions would be Charlie Chibbles, as you rightly say, did very, very well in that race. I think I'm not sure where False Tax ended up. If they ended up in a good position, then I would go so far as to maybe mention them, give them a little bit of a shout out as well. Let's have a look here in terms of this overall result. So yeah, they finished P5. So I think that False Tax or Silver Arrow would be my pick today, but I cannot pick between them. I can't. I just can't. So they both get it. We're giving out participation trophies today. So there we are then. That is your race finishing order. So taking the win today was Fraser, and then alongside them on the podium was Charlie Chibbles and Silver Arrow. Then from 4th place down, we had Luke, False Tax, Nattrack, Benichiro, Spike, Timalele, Lazzo, Booth, Dizo, Oscar, and Cattle King in 14th place, and I can't see any further below. Thank you. And then Major Castleman, the last of the DNFs, followed then by Husam, Villy, Dolphy, Raptor, and Nordy, all out of this race at varying points. Though, of course, some of those drivers will still be classified because they finished over 90% of the race distance. So there we are. Division 1, always entertaining, but I think even more so with the commentary gods supplying you here for us today.
Oh, well, very, very kind of you. That was a good run. I think your shout out to False Tax was a good one because we know that both Fraser and False Tax and many other drivers today have been involved in the Indianapolis 24-hour race over on Assetto Corsa Competizione. So to come from a 24-hour race into that sort of carnage and produce a top 5 finish is impressive. We've got the PC Division 1 standings from the last race, and with Booth not scoring, Oscar way down the order in that race. Well, Fraser's championship lead is going to be hard to claw back, even in this early stage of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. It's going to be a tricky thing to overcome, unless, of course, we end up having the likes of, last season in France, he had the wheel failure, and that was then what took him from race-winning position to DNF. So unless there's anything else from the racing gods which then allow the others to get back into contention here, it certainly looks as though all the momentum is with Fraser at the moment.
Indeed. Now I think we might have to get out the hot seat here, because it's 13 minutes until the Division 4 race, and I think that might need this channel, so we may need to hand over the keys.
Well, that's absolutely fine by me. One thing before we go, though, we didn't have a red flag in this race.
We didn't. We'll take that. We will absolutely take that.
We certainly will. That's absolutely right. So, my name then has been Daniel Gilligan. I've been very, very lucky to be joined today in the virtual commentary box by Harringzord, who has also been doing all of the wonderful behind-the-scenes wizardry to make this all look and sound beautiful for you today. Thank you very, very much for watching, everybody. Please stick around for the Division 4 race, and I'm sure that will be just as entertaining as you've seen here in Division 1. Thank you very much for watching. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.